Hey, folks, welcome back. Welcome back. It is Sunday morning, November 30th. I'm going to give it a minute for folks to come on in. This is a live taping once again of my show, Yapping with the Stars. Welcome, y'all. Welcome. I'm in Chicago and it started snowing since I want to say Friday night, and it ended, I think, early Sunday morning to this morning. And so I spent the morning outside getting my car, taking my car from the snow, but also doing a little bit of shoveling on the side. My roommate, he did most of the shoveling outside this morning. And, it reminded me of childhood. We haven't had a snow like this in Chicago in a few years, honestly. I know people talk a lot of shit about Chicago winters, but the past few winters have been a bit mild. So this snow is actually a fluffy snow. It reminds me of growing up. We had those big blizzards, and before it got cold and freezing, you can actually go out and play. Now, my ass ain't going out there to play too much because I don't have the kit, but it did bring back some memories. And it's actually kind of fitting for what we're going to talk about this week. All right, y'all. So come on in, y'all. Come on in. We're going to start the show right now. This week, y'all, we got a full moon in Gemini. So Mercury once again is leading the way. But this time it is a volley at all sides with the planet of wisdom in expansion, which is Jupiter. So knowledge, truth, and knowing are all up for grabs. It's a never-ending story that we are being asked to be a part of. The full moon brings to light what is in the dark. So what have you allowed illogical truths to lead? And what would it look like for you to take that back, to write your own myths, to create your own saviors, build your own worlds? Well, you've got to face the logics of the current system that you are already in and see where you need to uproot that logic from. So we're at the crossroads still. So what choices are you making? This is the weekly forecast from November 30th to December 5th, the full moon in Gemini. The crossroads requiring a choice. So now we got to make new myths, all right? So welcome back to Yapping with the Stars, y'all, the show where I talk about life and spirit with the help of the planets, stars, and zodiacs, and a little bit of common sense thrown in there as well. Now, I am your host and guide, Nicole Rouse, a storyteller who comes from a line of storytellers who weave and tell stories in many different ways. And here I work with astrology and ethnography to explore the stories of what it means for us to be human. Because right now the present is up for grabs. So who is leading the stories that will bring us into our futures? Now, every Sunday, we check into the chaos that we call society, and we're asking two questions. What's the cosmos showing us this week? And what are we being called to move, create, burn, build, or reflect upon? Y'all, we are in reflection time, reflection season. Even though Saturn and Mercury went direct last week, y'all, we still got a number of planets in retrograde. Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Chiron, right? So we are being asked to still take time to refigure out where it is we are, what it is we're doing, where we're trying to be, where we're trying to go. Even as we are having these planets go direct, they are still in elements. They are still in elements that require us to be more in flow, in motion, essentially in our feelings. And I say that because Saturn, while being direct right now, was still in the sign of Pisces, y'all, still in the deep waters. And it's part of that water trine that we've been talking about for the past few weeks. And it's still here. Saturn is trining with Jupiter. Jupiter is still retrograde in Cancer. And it's still having a conversation with Scorpio. Now, last week, we talked about the different planets that we're going through to create that water trine. And this week is no different because Mercury being direct now is one more time. I love me some Daft Punk, y'all. I love me some Daft Punk, okay? One more time is going to be going through Scorpio as it makes way into Sagittarius. So it's going to be a part of this water trine. So we are being asked not only to reflect and review, but actually feel. So what are you feeling right now? What are you feeling? Where in the body do you feel that feeling? Where in the body do you feel that feeling? What does that feeling feel like? What does it feel like? And then give it a song. That's an opening exercise I do a lot with various seminars, talks, communings, and the like. Because when I'm working with people, I want their body to be part of the conversation, not just their mind. I can tell when a mind is talking to me and a body is tuned out, because you either are saying all the quote unquote right things, or you are trying to perform what you think is the right kind of way to be, right? But there is no actual kind of embodiment. There is no vulnerability. Vulnerability being speaking a truth, even if that truth is uncomfortable. So So when I'm working with folks, again, whether it be in any kind of setting, I want truth to be there, because what the hell's the point of us communing together, especially if we're trying to get down and get in and get through some shit, right? The body's got to be part of this conversation. We've been talking about the body a lot in here, if you've been with me for the past few months, because the South Node has been in Virgo, which is one half of the sign that is ruled by the planet of Mercury. Mercury leading this full moon, because the other sign that Mercury rules is Gemini. So this is really about communication. It's about talking. This is about communing, right? But what are we talking about? What's at the table, right? What truly needs to be illuminated? Now, this is why I am a big fan of bringing folks together in settings, in various types of settings, whether it be online, right? In this kind of setting where I'm kind of talking, it feels like I'm talking at folks, but even though I'm live, so please feel free to comment, y'all, because I do like interacting and engaging with folks who are listening. But I also have my Patreon, but I also love bringing folks together in person in smaller ways. So if you are queer living in Chicago and want to reflect and commune with others about spirit, right, about the cosmos and how we can work to navigate this chaos that we call society, then come out December 4th for my intimate queer and chaos conversation that is going to be more of a salon conversation dream incubator. And here it's no more than 15 folks. We're going to sit around and we're going to commune. We're going to talk. We're going to work with music, call down our spirit, the spirit of our higher selves, and the spirits that are here for our collective queer liberation, as a way to create these containers, these incubators for us to dream, to imagine, to create. But in order for us to dream, we have to believe. And this is where we then have to allow ourselves to come together and collectively grieve. Right now, we're at a crossroad, y'all. And we're going to be talking about this for this week's full moon, because it's Mercury led, and Mercury is the planet. I had a few episodes ago, I'll find it and put it in the show notes, where I talked more about Mercury. And if you're in the Patreon, there is a whole session that we did in the divination school where I talked about Mercury and Uranus and the ways in which we communicate. Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system, our solar system, and it's the planet that communicates between the planets. It's the messenger. And as the messenger, right? So Mercury is the one that can get closest to the sun. It's the one that also has the most contact with that sun, right? It comes forward and comes back. And then it's the one that retrogrades, delivering messages between the planets, right? And when we think about this idea of the messenger, right, this is where the trickster comes in, because at the crossroad is where you will find the trick, where you will have to make a decision. So the trickster is there to help you ground into your discernment. This is why Mercury, right, when we think about Mercury as the planet, remember the signs, y'all, the costumes. The signs are not personalities, it's the planet. So when you're engaging with astrology is really about understanding the planets, because that is going to be the personalities, that's going to be the archetype, that's going to be the kind of essence of the who. And then the signs become how they express themselves in different ways. And there's a dualistic nature, right? Reminding us as humans that you are more than one thing. You will be contradictory. You will be dualistic in nature. Can you sit in your duality? This is why the planets, when we're talking about astrology and thinking about how astrology can help us become human, it's important to come down to the foundations and the foundations of what constructs the chart, which is those planets, signs, and houses. And so the planet right now that is loud is Mercury. Mercury has been loud, even though it's the smallest planet, it's been the loudest this year, telling us, reminding us, forcing us to realize that we are at a crossroad in society. And when you're at a crossroads, when you're at a major crossroad, right, what you have to do is then double down in your discernment, because there will be tricks all over the place. There are different locations trying to get you to pick this way, their way, our way, the way. But what is your way, right? So when we think about Mercury, it is the dualistic nature of Gemini, air, masculine, the mind's knowledge, the way the mind works, the lower mind, right? It's our logic. It's the way that we think. And then also Virgo being earth, feminine, the stomach, the body. So we're being asked to have to sit in the body. South Node is in Virgo right now, transiting. We are having to release. We are having to let go of the ways we have been taught to be critical, so critical, right, of ourselves, so that we don't believe the body. What happens if you believe the stomach? What happens if you let the stomach lead? Well, the full moon in Gemini is illuminating the fact, well, then, baby, what do you believe? Right? What is the workings of the mind that are leading you right now? So when we pull back and we think about then what we're trying to kind of figure out in this moment, it's really we're trying to figure out how do we make decisions where we are leading in the decision making, not just following along what we think we're supposed to do. Now, this is a full moon, and this is why it's interesting because the full moon is the sun is opposite the moon, right? It's shining a big light. So now the darkness is illuminated. And what is it shining a light on? Well, what's the opposite of Gemini? It's Sagittarius, shining a light on our beliefs, on our naivete, on the things that we make abundant, but that we need to reflect upon because whose beliefs are we believing in? Whose side are we using? Whose philosophies are we engaging in? Because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter and Mercury have been in this tension, this lockdown, this kind of configuration for a while. And this full moon puts Mercury and Jupiter in a conversation in all aspects, both as planets, right? But also and their signs in the different ways in which they have their costumes. And I say that because Mercury and Jupiter themselves, the ruling planets of the two opposite sides of this full moon, are in that trine and are in that trine as part of that larger water trine. So you will be in your feelings, y'all. You will have feelings come up. There's something from the depths, some kind of secret, some kind of something that has been bounded that needs to come up to the surface and be spoken so that truth can actually be at the table. And I say that Scorpio, the deep waters, coming and having a conversation with Cancer, the shore, right? Jupiter expanding that, and then Saturn over there and at the other end of this water trine saying, well, yeah, there's a way that we got to take responsibility. This is about all of us growing up, and you can only grow up. You can only have your own authority. You can only make your own timelines, make your own reality, construct and conceive that reality. It's Pisces, y'all. It's the imaginations, it's dreaming. Saturn says, motherfuckers, we got a dream right now. But you can only dream if you actually bring truth to the table, right? Can you speak truth? Can you speak it out? And Jupiter is there saying yes, because we have to think about and really examine and reflect upon. Jupiter is retrograde. It is the one planet in this trine that is retrograde stealing, asking us to slow down and reflect upon the belief systems and the constructions and the legalities, right? The systems around that have constructed our understanding of the family, of care, of nurturing, right? The things that are fundamental and meaning. This is a continuous story we've been talking about for a while now. We'll continue to talk about as Jupiter then makes its way through the sign of Cancer before it goes into Leo. We are in the time of focusing on mothering and motherhood before Jupiter expands understandings of fatherhood, and patriarchy. Right? So, what is the definitions of matriarchy that we are using, that we understand it to be? Right? How do we engage with different knowing, an upending, an unearthing of different knowledges? Because Mercury is in Scorpio. Scorpio is the butcher, is the researcher, is the one that goes to the depths. So for all of you, if you were looking into your own families, into the construction of families, into systems, right? Whose stories need to be unearthed? Whose perspectives need to be brought to the center? What about yours? If you brought your own perspective, your own understanding of care, of nurturing to the forefront, to the surface, right? Then what would you do? What would you do? How would your belief systems change? How would your understanding, right, of who and what you believe in maybe alter a little bit? The full moon is really interesting this time around, right? Because the full moon is going to be at 13 degrees. And what else at 13 degrees at the same time are the nodes, the transiting nodes of the moon that are in Virgo and Pisces. Again, Virgo is ruled by Mercury, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. The same planets that are ruling this full moon. Again, Gemini ruled by Mercury, Jupiter ruled ruled by or rules, excuse me. Mercury rules Gemini, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. 13 degrees, if you believe in degree theory, and again, I'm still playing around with this, but I find it fascinating for the last few transits. 13 degrees is a sign of Aries. This is the sign, this is the energy of initiation. This is the energy of fire, right? Of starting something, of a little bit of a naivete because you just do it, ruled by Mars. So this is also about strategy, about passion, about drive. And if we think about Mars, right, energy of Mars through Aries kind of undergirding this full moon of Gemini that's opposing Sag, alongside then the nodes of the moon that are also in the same signs as the same planet, ruled by the same planets as the signs that are ruling this full moon, right? Then we're also being asked not only to reflect and to think about what's being illuminated, but there is action that needs to be taken. So what's the action, right? What's the action that we are kind of being called to do, called to kind of lead in, called to examine? Well, to me, this is telling new stories, telling new myths, asking ourselves what it is we truly do individually and collectively believe in. Jupiter is a planet, right, that gets a lot of how do I say this? In modern astrology and pop astrology, Jupiter is given a lot of credit. It seems, like I said, it seems the good time dad. It's always talked about being abundance and beneficial. And whenever Jupiter is making a transit in your, in your chart, pop astrology tells you that you're going to have all these riches and all these goods. But that's really not Jupiter. Jupiter is the king of the gods, right? In Greek and Roman mythology. So Jupiter is the good time. It's the planet of plenty. It's abundance. But when has a god who's in charge ever been rational necessarily, right? If we listen to and we look to the myths and understand the kind of personalities and energies of these planets, of these gods, right? Because the planets are the gods, and the house and the signs are the temples of the gods, and the houses are where things happen, right? Where the places of the gods go and make things happen. If we understand that that is what Jupiter is doing, and Jupiter likes things at a slower pace, right? It takes its time. Mercury makes quick transits. Jupiter makes slower ones. It wants the things set up. It needs things to process. It needs laws that govern knowledge, right? Again, Jupiter was the patron of the Roman state because it was the planet that was over rulership, right? It is the patriarch. Mercury being the smallest planet, it likes to do things quick. It's not necessarily looking for a process, it's looking for get shit done, right? And if it does something and it don't work, it retrogrades, figures out what it could do better, and then moves forward with itself. So these are two different processes, two different ways of processing, because both are still examining knowledge, y'all. Both are about knowledge, but in different ways. Mercury, the lower mind, Jupiter, the higher mind. Mercury, our kind of K through 12 education, Jupiter being higher education, Mercury being the facts, Jupiter being the kind of the theory, right? So where then is there a kind of imbalance between the two? If there's opposites, they're opposing right now, and the full moon is illuminating for us things, then where are we having to illuminate our belief systems, right? Where are we having to take responsibility and initiate and strategize differently about the kind of systems that we have been beholden to? This is about religion, but it's also about where we give our authority up to. And this is being illuminated for us once again. Again, a continuous story. This is the same story, y'all, but we're being asked, do we believe our realities as this story unfolds? So the water trine is here, and the water trine is asking us to work with our emotions as we are figuring out and having illuminated to us the different ways that these kind of governance structures, religious structures, philosophical structures really may not necessarily be for us. So if they're not for us, then Saturn is again saying in Pisces, then what is your responsibility? What is our responsibility collectively to create new stories, to create new authority, to create new culture? Because culture is the essence and bedrock of society, y'all. Sociopolitically and economically, this is how we engage with one another. This is how we create societies. So what's the culture we're living in? One of the reasons why I really believe strongly that this next kind of iteration, and a lot of folks been talking about this next iteration of social media will not be as kind of broad. People will start to create their own sub communities. Once again, you're going to see more kind of membership and subscription based kind of content. Folks will not necessarily want to be as out there. Is because I think we're realizing that the abundance of information, right? And abundance, this kind of constant need to consume does not actually feed us. So what feeds you? What would actually feed us, right? If we are to engage with one another, if we are to put our resources into things. And I think this kind of shifting of knowledge, of content, of knowledges, of where we look to for knowledge is needed. Right now, right, one of the biggest things we see in this happen is education in the United States. The Department of Education has now been blown up, completely blown up. And Trump administration did exactly what it said it was going to do. Now it took a little bit longer than they wanted to. They wanted to do this in the first 6 months, but I mean, they did it in the first 11, right? The year's not even ended, and they have literally ended institutions and departments that took decades to build. Now, I used to work in higher ed for a very long time. I was in higher ed as a student at just before I turned 18, right? Yeah, reading physical hard books. That's another thing, Lucy. People will going back to kind of the actual text of things too and looking to see which text you're using and engaging with. Higher ed. So going back to that, higher ed. So, being in higher ed, for the time I was just turned 18 till I was 40, right? Students, staff, faculty, administrator, and all the like. And again, I was also a part of programs. Like I am a product of the state. I was in as student support services in McNair as a trio kid, right? I'm definitely a trio baby, Pell Grant recipient and the like. The Department of Education was always a fucking mess. Okay. It was always a mess. I'm not excusing what's happening now, but the dismantling that was able to happen so quickly is because the foundations itself were never solid to begin with. And so, what happens, right, when a tyrant comes in and accidentally exposes the cracks that were already there, but in doing so is not trying to fix that shit, right? It's just trying to crack it more wide open so that it can come in and consume. We have to understand our oppressor does show us things. And right now, the way that the state has been able to go in and dismantle things so quickly has shown just how unstable all this shit always was. Think Uranus and Taurus. Uranus and Taurus, the last 7 years, right, was really upending all the things we thought were solid. And Taurus being the earth material version of Venus, this is our material essence of what makes us alive. Food, infrastructure, transportation, justice systems, right? The ways in which our bodies are actually fed and cared for. All of that was upended. And Uranus is now making its last waves in the Taurus right now, retrograding. It'll retrograde back, I think, till about 28, 27 degrees before it makes its way back. And by April, it'll be in Gemini for the next 7 years. So we are having the kind of last remnants of the shakeup of things that we thought were solid that are completely going to be gone. And the catalyst was somebody who could actually put that shit into motion, in charge. Neptune's, remember, these outer planets are all in this kind of minor grand trine for the next few years, right? Neptune retrograde back into Pisces was having authority show us where it's trying to lead us, right back into the goddamn dystopian imagination that it tells us is the only thing is possible. And now we're realizing that's not true. So this is a time we have to create new stories. And you create new stories, create new worlds by creating new myths. So who is the god, or who are the gods that you are praying to? And what happens if the god is you? What happens if God truly is you? What happens if you call the God in you down into the vessel that is you and you embody that? You worked with her, him, them, right? You worked with your higher self. Call that God down and ask and co-create with it. Co-create with you. Create the mythos, create the world. What is your avatar? What is your origin story? Because we're being asked to initiate something else. We're at the crossroad. Mercury has been saying this whole year. The way that Mercury has retrograded, mainly in fire, has dipped into water, showing us what it's going to be doing the next 18 months in retrogrades. Going to be all in water signs, right? Fire, then water. We're having to review what we put our actions into, and we're also then having to review how our body feels with that, what the emotions are actually saying, not dismiss it, but have it again at the table. So then what is the strategy? 13 degrees, Mars, strategy in Aries, fire, but that is in different elements, right? So what are we initiating? How do you initiate? How do you build a new world? Well, you have to believe the world you're in. So let's go back to education. So when I was in the DOE, that was a goddamn mess, right? There was the ways that the programs that were ran a lot of times. Again, I was not only in these programs. When I finished my degree, I ended up working first as McNair director, and then I constructed my own office that housed all the programs that work with underserved populations in higher ed. This was at Beloit. So I was there for almost 5 years, built the office, growth the grants, right? And again, working with different groups that were focused on working with populations at the margins. All I had to deal with was fucking bureaucracy with the state. Different programming officers, different legs and regs, different fiscal years, right? And understanding the way I trained my staff, right? The way I had to train myself and all of us train one another was that we realized we had to know the legs and regs better than the program itself, because that program officer changed so goddamn much that they would deny things that were actually allowable, and the things that they said should not be allowable, right, were. So we're having these kind of constant negotiations and conversations. Depending upon the administration would depend upon if we actually got all of our fucking money or not. So funny enough, when I was working and Obama was in office, because of the impact of the '08 crash and the bailouts after that, Trio was cut under Obama. Right, we lost 5.4 fucking percent. That's a lot of damn money to lose when your job is built dependent upon hitting your outcomes, and those outcomes require resources. It requires money, y'all. It required money. McNair was about providing resources for first gen, low income, and/or minority students who wanted to get a PhD. In order to get a PhD, yeah, you got to have some brains, but you need some goddamn money. That's the reality of the shit. People who do this purity politic, especially those who claim this so-called revolutionary or radical kind of perspective, but then want to put their nose up to going in and stealing back the resources stolen to begin with in this project, are part of the kind of milieu that allows this shit to continue. None of us are clean. So get your ass in them dirty ass houses and take them resources, because they're not theirs to begin with. Right? So that's what I had to teach a lot of my students and my staff. How do you go in and take the shit? Because they're not going to give it to you. Even if they say that these programs are for the margins, even if they allocate these resources, they will always do something to try to get it so that they can keep that money, whether the state keeps it or the institutions and their goddamn overhead with the indirect and direct costs. Okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay overall. What I am saying is you are navigating a bureaucratic landmine of bullshit to begin with. So Trump coming in and saying he was going to just go ahead and do all these audits and show the kind of, what would he call it? Wasteful overspending, which is hilarious, someone like him. Right. And any of these damn conservatives, they know how to spend some goddamn money. And then once the money is gone, put their hands up, let the Dems come in. Dems try to clean up a fucking mess, but don't actually clean it up because they're too scared to seize power. And we go into this damn loop of just being taken advantage of, taken for a ride, then having to figure out how to fill the coffers once again for the conservatives to come right back in and take that shit once again. Right. This kind of cycle. So when the DOE was initially under attack, right, it should have known, but it didn't do anything, as it normally didn't. It didn't necessarily take action. It did exactly what all these universities did off the bat. As soon as Trump came into office and flexed a little bit, it bent the knee. It bent the knee. Because it was already a cracked foundation. We have to remember something, y'all. The only reason why we would have all these programs that now are being accused of, being so wasteful and spending is because the state said that it would do better essentially after the Civil Rights Act was passed. But after the Civil Rights Act was passed, a lot of things didn't move. The only way things moved was folks being on the neck of the state. This is where you get critical race theory coming out of, because you had legal scholars, you had activists, you had organizers, you had politicians working together to figure out ways to circumvent the law, because the law was using and skirting around the responsibility it said it had to open up space for folks to be able to engage in these resources, namely education, housing, and the like. Okay. So right now we are at a crossroads of what is education, what is belief, who do we go to and why? Because right now the state says it's not educating us for a good goddamn. Like I said before, the Southern strategy was to make the population sick and ignorant. And it has done that over time. No matter who has been in charge, the policies have consistently taken away resources that would allow people to be able to critically engage, to think, to create, to be creative. Pisces. Saturn's in Pisces right now. Pisces is a creative sign. So is water in general. Water is creation. We are birthed through water. So as this water trine is here, and this parent of the zodiac, Saturn and Jupiter, are been laying the foundation, been laying the kind of the home, right, that Scorpio transits have to pass through and have a conversation with. This is not just working with your emotions, right? But it's also allowing ourselves to create. This is creation. This is creativity. The parents of the zodiac, Saturn and Jupiter, are saying you still got to create. That is how you resist. That is one way to resist. That is one way to reclaim what was taken in these projects. Because the outer planets are showing us we are at a crossroads. This is change. Change is here. Mercury is saying, I've been trying to bring y'all to the crossroads all damn year, right? Releasing, having you make space in the body so that you can actually hear yourself, the discernment, the stomach. Do you believe you? And the only way you can believe you is if you understand the logic and the system and the language that is speaking to you. So this is a time of study. Study, full moon, Gemini and Sag, teacher and student. Sag is the teacher, Gemini is the student. What are you studying? And right now you need to study you. You need to study you. Part of my methodology, I'm writing my book, y'all. I'm writing my book. It's coming along slow as shit, but it's coming. It's my process called embodied strategic dreaming. And one part of that is what I call ethnographic self-study. You've got to study yourself. We're taught everything else but ourselves, right? What would it look like if we were growing up and one of the classes we were taught in K through 12 is what are your emotions and what is attraction, right? What if we were actually taught that? What if we actually taught how to work with our bodies, how to understand the way that it comes on depending upon our age, because the body's always evolving, always growing, always shedding, always dying to be reborn once again. Right? So what are we learning? How do we learn? What are we studying? Because we have to always be studying. Life is a journey. A lot of people say that Earth is a school. So if you believe Earth is a school or a marketplace, right, and your time here in these bodies and vessels, right, whether you think it's rented or whatever it is, right, we're supposed to be on this journey to it. Then it's a constant state of learning. You don't just stop learning because you stop going to school, right? That's another thing I thought about education too, with the whole DOE thing and the lack of resistance that we truly are seeing from the institutions that do have the money and have the power to resist. It's because a lot of people in these spaces stop learning. That was something that really shocked me, but not when I finished my PhD and started to work. I initially was in administration. I was staff because I was the director of McNair, but I was also teaching on the side as in the anthropology department and doing a lot of one-on-one special classes with students. A lot of them, that's because they needed some more theoretical kind of training and background and knowing to do the projects they wanted to do. And I found it interesting because they all had faculty mentors, but a lot of the faculty mentors couldn't help them in these theoretical locations. And when I was McNair director for the past few years, no matter what the discipline was, a lot of the students overall were examining from their different disciplinary locations. I did the ideas of identity, ideas of belonging, of nation and citizenship, interestingly enough, from their perspectives. Sometimes race, but really it was about how people were trying to think through the decolonial from the different disciplinary perspectives. But a lot of the faculty they had none of that training. And I would ask them, I would say, well, why can't y'all, some of y'all are full professors, and they would say, well, that's not my area of expertise. And I said, that might be so, but you've taken this paycheck to mentor this student who you actually can't fucking mentor. So either you get curious and learn some shit, or you don't take my money from this program to then not mentor, so that I'm doing double duty and not getting your paycheck. I was very clear, y'all. People like me or didn't like me, I was very truthful, because I didn't understand that. How you gonna claim all this kind of bravado, and the hierarchy and higher ed between faculty and staff is strong, even amongst your most so-called radical academics. Let me tell you something right now. A lot of them are not talking with or collaborating with or in community with staff on those universities either. Right? There's a strict hierarchy here that operates, and faculty's needs tend to always take precedence. And so my thing was, we're not doing this here. If it's about the students and it's about their development, right? Then if you yourself do not have that particular perspective, but they are still coming to you for guidance, then that is your cue to get more curious. Now you are in the role, yes, of teacher, but that teacher now also needs to be a student, so that you can then better mentor the student coming to you. Jupiter and Sagittarius remind us of that. You never stop learning, y'all. The degree is only one aspect. The degree shows you that you've completed a course of study that allowed you to gain a so-called either expertise or enough knowledge to claim that you have the ability to lead or teach in that location. That does not mean you stop. Gemini full moon is part of that's going to illuminate the ways that we may have stopped learning. We may have stopped being curious, or we need to get more curious at, because that's what allows us to world build. That's what allows us to create curiosity. We need curiosity, experimentation, and play. Those three are the foundation pillars of my lab, the Embodied Futures Lab, and the Patreon is one location of my lab, right? The Patreon is where I do get to experiment and play a bit, right? And be curious and allow that curiosity to come out. So as I'm figuring out, what I wanted to create. And that's also part of the book. My book is like, how do we learn to study ourselves once again and work with things like the cosmos and music and other modalities, so that we turn the body's logic on and put that in a conversation with the ways our minds have been conditioned and trained in these systems, and then ask ourselves other questions like, do I really want this shit then? Do I believe this? Right? It may be here, it may be what I am told is what is, but if what is does not allow me to truly be, and I'm inhabiting my spirit in this body, right? Then what are the worlds we will create that will allow others to be able to inhabit their spirits and allow their bodies to fully shine, right? And this is something that when you're in your body, y'all, and this is a big part of this kind of cycle of this cosmos transit cycles, right? Right. It's an interesting kind of conversation to have when you talk to your body, when you actually talk to it, not judge it, not shame it, not try to discipline it, but talk to it. Right. Yeah, it is the original technology, right? Lucy, it's the original technology is the body. When you allow it to talk, y'all, and this full moon, I want you to let it talk. I want you to learn from you, right? Learn from another side of you. What comes up may actually shock you. I talked about this last week, but when I did this clarity bath that I had my patrons do in the Patreon, and we talked about it. Funny enough, it was interesting. I had told folks they could make their own baths, and two of the folks in the divination school actually made the exact same bath. They don't they don't necessarily they didn't talk as far as I knew, right? Two different locations in the world, two different times in the two different they're in two different kind of times in their lives age wise, but they both made the same bath. That's the power of group work, y'all. The power of group conjure. When people come together and you are working with spirit, because it is spiritual work, right? Spiritual work. It's not willy nilly. You got to put some work into this shit. That is what also allows us to conjure together. And again, this is why I'm doing the in person salon conversations as essentially small dream incubators, no more than 15 people. Because when we come together and we commit to coming together, that's the first contract. You are making a contract with spirit and other people's spirits. So you don't want to waste spirit's time. Spirit does not like its time wasted. Time may be nebulous, but don't call on spirit if you're not going to actually show up and do the work. So even in group settings, if this is a big thing, y'all, if you are working with groups, especially on these moon cycles, there's a responsibility to the group. You cannot just be there, everybody else do shit, you not do nothing, and then you think you're taking the benefits from it. There is a cost to that. You may have a benefit from other people's working, but the spirit will eventually come back and ask for your offering. That's something I learned throughout the years, I've been in various kind of spiritual communities, both as a student and then in kind of quote unquote, you could say a coven kind of way. I don't love that word because the way it's been used, but really it's folks who are intentionally coming together to conjure, right? And so this is what I'm doing with the divination school. Now that we have laid a foundation, I'm really working with folks to learn the logics of magical properties and different kind of systems and spiritual laws and stuff, and putting that in a conversation with socio-political processes and concepts, right? So that we can have logic to the work we are doing, to the workings we are doing, to the worlds we are building. Intentionality is there. The first thing you do with the ritual, y'all, is intention, right? Do you have an intention? Are you clear? And if you're not clear, if you realize the intention is you need to get clear, right? That's a clarity. That's why I had the Patreon do. We start with clarity. You start with clarity, y'all. Once you have clarity, clarity will bring truth. And when truth comes up, right, that can be a bitch. Clarity and truth together can be a bitch together because it's pure love, but love, pure love, wants everyone to be at their kind of highest self, their best potential, sitting in the essence of self. And so to sit in the highest version of you, and that highest version, y'all, when I say higher version of self, that is not some so-called kind of enlightened, perfect, peaceful being. That means you are sitting fully in your contradictory humanity. You do know who the fuck you are, right? You understand that sometimes your essence of you may rub up against others. This is not about perfection. This is about grounding in the mundane and humanity. This full moon is illuminating that we're at a crossroads. We have already lived this kind of Neptune and Piscean era of this love and light, moving above the body, kind of not engaging with the reality of the harshness of living. And what has that gotten us? That has gotten us abuse, that has gotten people gaslit, that has gotten folks leaving one church and going and thinking of leaving a cult and going right into another because we have not been taught. Again, teaching. We have not been taught how to work with our bodies and our emotions. Therefore, we have not been taught how to actually be human, right? How to actually be human. That's what these things are trying to teach us right now. Can you sit and learn from yourself? Can you allow yourself to be in the duality? Because if the planets themselves have two signs, if the gods understand duality to the point that they made themselves have two signs, even the luminaries are basically the mirrors of each other, the sun and the moon, Leo and Cancer, next door to each other, right? If that is what the planets and the gods do, then what makes us think humans aren't also supposed to be dualistic, have different ways that different costumes we put on to express the self? But if we won't allow the dualistic nature of ourselves to come up, right, then we will repeat the same story we are already in. Mercury says we're at a crossroads. Don't trick yourself. The trickster tends to be ourselves, right? I talked about this last week. The trickster tends to be ourselves. All Mercury does, right? All Mercury does is deliver messages. right? Delivers messages back and forth, back and forth. Hey, our job is to pick them up and to figure out what we do with them, right? Right? And it doesn't feel good, Sam, right? Just when you think you've learned yourself or you figured something out, right? Something else comes in to challenges that. That's exactly true. But here's the thing, too. It's a lifelong journey. There's no final destination. It's just a presence of being. And this is really hard to understand. And this is also part of what Saturn and the deep sea waters of Pisces is trying to get us to truly grapple with. Time is nebulous, right? Time is nebulous. There is no final except death. And even death, depending upon how you understand it, that's just the first death, right? Then you got to go into the other side, and that's when you really go to work, right? If you're actually going to be an elevated and a good ancestor, you go to work when you're dead, right? There's a different type of work, but again, it's spiritual working. So this is about a kind of deep curiosity and knowing, and then being okay sitting and grounding for a while in the articulation of who you are in this present. But can we do that? Right? We can. We can. If we also examine the structures that facilitate our ability to be in our own sense of self. And those are the institutions that construct the society. And again, the first one being the family, but also all those other governing structures, especially around law and justice and economies. Right? Economies. Why am I saying economies? Because Mercury also rules commerce, y'all, and transportation. Right? We are in an economic crisis right now, too. Society, the crossroads, everything we're in, everything's up for grabs. If everything's up for grabs, and everything's up for grabs. And we've been here before throughout history in times of chaos and complete social upheaval and economic downturn. That is when new worlds are created. We have seen it over and over again. New innovations are constructed and shoved down and told us this is the new way forward. But in those kind of new world building, did we actually get new worlds, or was it just a different articulation of the same old shit in a different font? Again, this AI boom is no different than the kind of 2000s .com boom, which is honestly no different than a lot of these so-called innovations and technological advancements we've seen throughout time and space, that when it does bust, society goes down with it. Right? Industries, when industries go belly up, we have whole towns, coal mining towns, that we are still seeing the ramifications of not having an imagination after that industry left. You took, but you did not reciprocate. So when we're thinking about this idea, right, of time and of knowing and of world building, and then we're in the present moment and feeling the hardship, right, of the reality we are in, and being told that, and then still being told by our president that this is the best America has been. It's only looking better, right? Completely being gaslit in our faces as people's bellies are hungry, as costs go up, but the bank account goes down. We are being told by those in charge this is the best time to be alive and be American, and things are going to only get better. If we believe that shit, right? If we believe that definition, if we believe what that story is saying, and then we understand our reality and realize that they do believe that this is the best that they can do for us, but we know that this is not the best we can do for ourselves. Full moon in Gemini, what's being illuminated? Then who and what do we need to shift our beliefs to? Right? What are the kind of logics that we are engaging in? And if it doesn't feel good, because I get this, Sam, if it doesn't feel good, because it ain't going to feel good. It ain't going to necessarily feel good. But who says that you feel good right now? Who actually feels good right now? Right? Reality hits hard and the body starts talking, and it's telling a lot of us. I'm going to say that right now. I'm just going to say it. Telling a lot of us, baby, you ain't felt good in a long time. That's why you drink it away, smoke it away, sex it away, shop it away. Solange put her foot in that song, okay? Put her whole ass foot in that song. Because have we been feeling good? That's also what this new moon, but really the South Node in Virgo, has been asking us since January. Do you actually feel good? Again, I keep asking every week, gonna keep asking, how your stomach doing? How has food gone down? Especially, we just had American Thanksgiving. How did that food go down? Right? Can you eat the same things? Does taste even taste the same? When you are in and realize that the present will have you be present, which means you're going to feel. And if you ain't been feeling for a while and you've been disassociating, so now you are feeling the full moon illuminating the kind of ways that you have, right, convinced yourself of one thing, but now you can no longer convince yourself of that because the truth has been brought to light. It can do a mind fuck. So make sure that you've got your mind, right? That you understand that the mind can start to kind of ruminate on this full moon. It's all about we are having the plethora of our knowledges, Jupiter and Mercury in a conversation, and it's lit up. So protect your mental health. But sometimes protecting your mental health, y'all, and I'm not a mental health professional, I'm an anthropologist, but I am saying this as I've examined this culturally. Sometimes protecting your mental health is actually speaking what the fuck you are feeling. Get it out of you. Mercury is in Scorpio. Let the depths come up and out. You cannot hold this by yourself. We're not meant to do this. Right? This is about collective grief. This is about collectively actually taking responsibility for our society, because we have to believe what this goddamn administration is doing. You see what I mean? Illuminating, self-study, constant study, teacher-student, the reciprocal relationship we need to be curious so that the wisdom that we are imparting upon others is actually rooted in our own experiences, not regurgitating the myths of a state that is telling us right now to our face that this is the best we can hope for. This is the best we can hope for. Who the fuck wants this? You know what I mean? So, time to tell new myths, time to tell new stories, time to construct new worlds. And the way we do that, y'all, the nodes are right there. This is all the moon. The moon is moving us. The moon is the tides. The moon is the body. The moon is the expression of the body, which is the emotions. The moon is you. The moon is you as a human being. And it's nodes, right? It's nodes. They're all at 13 degrees, saying it's time to strategize and initiate differently with your own fucking head. So in order to do that, you got to stop criticizing yourself so damn much. Because the more you be critical, the more you criticize the more you criticize others, and nothing is ever good enough. The purity politic comes in. And what has purity politics gotten us? The same goddamn story, right? Over and over again. But what's that country song? Oh no, that's Nelly. Never mind. I'm gonna cut that. So, but you know what I'm saying, y'all? You know what I'm saying? So if we release and allow then that body to speak, and then that body pushes us toward collectives that feel good, where we can actually express, be vulnerable, right? Bring those truths in, create, not go into kind of escapism that removes us from the body, but allow ourselves to dream and imagine so that we can construct in a different plane and then bring that into reality. Very different processes. The body leads. And when the body leads, if you let the body lead, then it will lead you to those who are for you. How many of you have been in groups, right, where you're feeling uncomfortable, you don't feel like you belong, right, but you're trying, and you're telling yourself that if you just conform some more, if you just contort, if you make your body smaller, if you just do this, that, and the other, right, then it'll be okay. Then you can be part of it, right? And what has that gotten us? It's gotten us Instagram pictures, right? And friend trips and, likes and shares, but has it actually filled the belly? Because if your belly is empty, do those same groups, can you actually say and share what it is you truly need? We're all being asked to have to reevaluate the ways that we commune together. And we all have a responsibility to that. I understand the lockdowns did a lot. The lockdowns were a big reset. And there is a very, excuse me, there is a very real threat. COVID is not gone, right? COVID is not gone. That's real. And we are human. We still need to connect. We still need to connect. And so we are more connected than ever via technologies, but yet we are so disconnected more than ever as well. The loneliness epidemic, and it is not just men. It is not just men, right? The loneliness epidemic is hitting all of us. Men, women, they, thems, kids, youth, as well as adults. Because humanity requires a vulnerability. It requires being able to understand what it is you need, but then also understanding other folks have needs. And when those needs meet, can they collide? I mean, can they combine? Can they sit side by side? Do they collide? If they collide too much, are we okay saying maybe this won't work, right? Whatever capacity that means. But there is a way that the need for connection is strong right now, because that is the crossroad we're in. So how to create, Mercury, connector. How do we create places of connection that allow, right, us to fully care for one another, that allow us to understand what care means? Yes, it's an ability thing, right? It's about having accommodation. But even more than that, right? It's the understanding that we still have to show up. If you are in a space, what are you offering? I say this all the time. If you're going out, right, especially going out trying to go to fuck a club, and I've never been a big fan of the clubs. I'm always a big fan of lounges and bars that got music and stuff. But if you're going out to a party, right, and you paid money to go to that party, and you got DJs going, right, the money paid is not guaranteeing you a good time. When you go into that space, everyone's got to make an offering in order for that space then to come in live, for everyone, right, to be able to enact the vision of what that party's supposed to be. So when you're in a space like that, shaking your ass is a goddamn offering, right? Shake the ass, make the offering, create, and let the space conjure to what it's supposed to be. Responsibility, right? So this is part of this kind of larger conversation that's being illuminated with Jupiter and Mercury in this constant conversation through its signs, but also directly as the planet. Because again, Jupiter is in Cancer, Mercury's in Scorpio. They're in a trine, part of the water trine with Saturn. So then what are the emotions saying to you that are going to be coming up this week, right? And also, what is the creation that wants to come out of you? And who do you want to create with? As a way do you figure out who do you want to commune with? This is about building new worlds, building new structures, building new realities. And we all have a responsibility in that creation and construction. In order for us to do that, the full moon is reminding us that we have to be in this kind of teacher-student energy. Curiosity and experimentation and play have to be there so that we get down to what our truths actually are that then inform what we consider facts. All right, let me wrap it up, y'all. Let me wrap it up. So this is about stories and storytelling. This is about beliefs and belief systems. This is about, again, working with your emotions as a way to work with creativity. So what are you calling in? What needs to be taught? What do you need to teach? What needs to be reworked? And in this kind of storytelling, story making, mythos creation era that we're in, this is about the crossroads and Mercury reminding us that we are in a time of change. We are in a time of chaos because chaos and change are bedfellows. So if you allow yourself to be at the center of that crossroad and allow the body to lead by grounding in the feet, right, and centering the self, then what road would you go down, right? If you don't trick yourself, but you allow the crossroad to present the various possibilities, then what road will you decide you want to go down and lead? Okay. Let me know how this comes up for you, y'all. All right. So before I leave, because I jumped right into it, just a couple of reminders. If you want to commune with me and talk more about this, I'm going to get more into this on the actual full moon in Gemini, December 4th. I will be doing my intimate queering chaos conversation. We'll be talking more about queering spirit. These are small, no more than 15 people dream incubators where we can get further into a topic through a queer lens. And here I work with music. I work with music and sound and food and drink to really help us conjure the world we want to live in. All right. And we're going to do this first with spirit. And then on the 16th will be the next Queering Chaos conversation at Dorothy Downstairs. And there we'll be talking about queering, pleasure, play, and taboo things. I'll talk more about that next week. Okay. Now, if you want to learn more with me, I'll be actually doing the last of my 100 astrology series on the 3rd. So this Wednesday in Astrology 102, I'll be going over the houses. All right. So we talked about how to look at your chart in 100 overall for the energies. 101, we went into planets and signs. So the actual who and the how of the zodiac. And now we're going to go into the where. The houses themselves, all 12. And I combine traditional and modern understandings of the houses. So this is my interpretations of the 12 houses that occupy the chart. So if you're interested in that, join me online December 3rd through Big Liz Conjure. You can either join me live and or you can purchase a recorded, the recording of the lesson. All my lessons do come with zines, and Astrology 100 and 101 are also up. If you want to purchase 100, you can do so on my Patreon, but you can also do so on Big Liz Conjure as well. Okay. And speaking of sales right now, or speaking of purchasing, I am going to be revamping my astrology offerings for 2026. I've had a good time in 2025 playing around with what kind of astrology readings I like to give. So if you've been with me and you've kind of seen the different offerings I've had, I started off just a Journey to Self reading, which is a natal reading, and I've highly expanded into various types of readings, from spiritual gifts to transitions to partner ones to clarity and the like. Now I got an idea of the types of readings I want to do and how I want to do them. So I'm going to be completely revamping what I offer, again, like I said, next year. So to prepare for that, all of my readings, no matter what length they are half off until December 1st, tomorrow. All right. So if you want to book a reading with me, go ahead and use the code half off when you book, and you can get half off any reading. I do have a special after this, but it is not half off. So if you want to get a reading with me at a good price, go ahead and book by tomorrow. And then after that, for December, I will have a holiday special as well. But again, it won't be half off. All right. And then as always, if you want to learn more with me, if you want full episodes of this show, but also further teachings, musings, and the like, join me on my Patreon, y'all. That is my lab. That is the online version of my Embodied Futures lab, in which we really talk about curiosity, experimentation, and play as a way to come back into the human once again. All right. So that's where you will get more insights from me, learn a little bit more about me, but also be able to work with others, especially at that soundscape level, which is the divination school that I have. Okay. So that's all I got this week. Okay, perfect, Lucy. I hope to see you then, right? All right, y'all. So that's all I got this week. I'll be back next week, and then there will be a condensed schedule for December and January, as I do take some time off, because that's also what exhaustion has been telling my ass. So I'll be back next week, and then I'll let you know the kind of schedule for the next 2 months going forward, all right? So as always, y'all, keep dreaming, keep exploring, because it's through the dreamscapes we can bring the futures to say we want to bring into the present, all right? Till next time. I don't want to be right. I just want to be free. Like Michelle sang. The cosmos, where we come from. The light that that lit the way for our ancestors in the dark of night, when they had to leave the spaces that tried to steal their breath and life, reworking while also learning how to work with the land that was also being worked, a land and people under duress. The trees did not ask if they wanted to participate in such brutal practices. Yet here they were. Here we are. All beholden to a power structure that only knows how to take and never to give, while telling us this is the right way to live. So I don't want to be right. I just want to be free. As Michelle say, the cosmos. The cosmos. We'll learn to imagine that freedom lied in parable of the sower that sowed the seeds of Earth's seed that wanted to bring humans back to the stars, to start again, to start anew. Remember where we come from and who we are. The stars that lit the way, that guide the light. The moon that holds the tides of the waters. Our connection to earth and land. As above, so below. Yet we don't know, because we have lost the above and the below. So I don't want to be right. I just want to be free. And journey to the cosmos.